Okay. 30 seconds, everybody. All right. I am going to call today's Yountville Town Council meeting to order. It is Tuesday, September the 17th at 3 p.m. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Reeves? Here. Councilmember McKee-Cant?
Here.
Councilmember Knight?
Here.
Vice Mayor Tripp?
Here.
Mayor Moeller?
Here. If everyone could please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. And thank you. And now there's no changes. Can I get a motion to adopt today's agenda, please?
Move to adopt.
Second.
And you can do a voice vote for that.
Voice. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? That passes unanimously. And now, council member announcements. One thing I wanted to announce was the Saturday before last, the town manager and I and our town clerk went up to St. Helena and received a very nice award. It's actually sitting in the hallway. It's a beautiful crystal award from the Blue Zones, certifying Yountville as a Blue Zone town. So that was a lot of fun. It was a little warm, but they had ice cream, so that kind of helped. And that's all I have right now. Anybody?
Yes. I wanted to point out to the public and kind of walking around Mad Fritz in the area around Ponchas this weekend. I see that there is a notice on Mad Fritz that they are closed right now because of permitting. It's actually ABC permitting, has nothing to do with the town, and they do hope to be open by this Friday. So beer will be on tap once again. Want to thank and congratulate Yountville Arts Commission and Sam on a successful summer season. As requested several months ago, we'd asked about ways to invigorate the plaza and activity kind of elevation here in town. And I'm excited to see that the Arts Commission has scheduled 2 weekends of open studios starting this very weekend and running next weekend, where 3 talented artists, a painter, photographer, and a potter will be showing and hopefully selling their work in the community plaza. And while we're talking about artists, I went to Sam to ask if it would be possible to do a holiday fair. So mark your calendar for December 7th. This will be an artisan fair here at the community center, again, trying to activate and elevate. We all know that there's a shortage of shopping opportunities in town. So I hope that these locally brewed events will stir up some excitement and some opportunities. Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Knight.
Thank you. Thank you. Just quickly, just a thank you to Station 12 and our firefighters in this area for a very warming and just inviting 9/11 presentation at the station. They had the new truck and the flag up, and then we had the mayor spoke, and Jennifer Brewster from the Veterans Home spoke. So it was, and also we had an interesting experience. They did a traditional push-in of the new fire truck, which is a tradition going back to firefighters and the fire stations in the 18th century, where they unhooked the horses and had to push the fire truck into the station. So they did a push-in for our new ladder truck, and so I want to thank them and for all that attended, and also I know there was also a few residents that attended earlier in the day at the community center at the piece from World Trade Center that we have in the community centers. So for some, they went there and remembered that day. And so both events are always full of a lot of sadness and but an opportunity to get together and share that. So thank you.
And never forget.
Excuse me?
And never forget.
And never forget. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Okay, with that, proclamations and recognition. We have a recognition because we have a new employee. Our new deputy town clerk. Is our town clerk going to introduce her?
Yes, Mayor and Town Council. The town is excited to welcome Cami Noriega as Deputy Town Clerk and Records Coordinator. She comes most recently from the city of Petaluma, but brings a general wealth of municipal experience and is going to be a great asset to our team. So let's all welcome Cami, and happy she's here with us today.
So I just wanted to thank you for letting me be here. I'm really excited to join this team.
Great. Welcome on board. And I have a proclamation today on Suicide Awareness Prevention Month. Is Arturo Garcia here? Great. Can you meet me at the podium? Okay. Thank you very much. This is a proclamation for Suicide Prevention Month, September 2024. Whereas the Napa County Suicide Prevention Council, a public-private collaborative of people and organizations who are dedicated to reducing stigma surrounding suicide, supporting those who have lost loved ones to suicide, identifying and advocating for resources and promoting a safe, connected and resilient community dedicated to reducing the risk of suicide, and whereas in the last 7 years, Napa County Suicide Prevention Council has worked tirelessly to reach their vision of a suicide-free community through education and training, stigma reduction, linkage to services, and provision of resources to combat suicide, and whereas from 2020 to 2022, the suicide rate in California was 10.7 deaths per 100,000 population, and Napa County was 11.9 deaths per 100,000 population, placing Napa County higher than the state average. And whereas in Napa County in calendar year 2023, residents between the ages of 18 to 35 had the highest suicide rate. The most common mechanism for suicide was by firearms, 40%, and hanging, 40%. And whereas in calendar year 2023, 15 individuals completed suicide in Napa County, and whereas in fiscal year 23-24, the Napa County Suicide Prevention Council trained 768 community members in the question, persuade, and refer model of suicide prevention to help prevent suicides. And whereas in January 2024, the Napa County Suicide Prevention Council published a 3-year strategic plan for suicide prevention, which reflects the priorities, accomplishments, and needs for suicide prevention in our county and outlines a comprehensive approach to suicide prevention. And whereas, in partnership with the Napa County Health and Human Services, the Napa County Suicide Prevention Council, in hosting the first annual Suicide Prevention Conference on September the 18th, Hope Beyond Darkness, Uniting for Suicide Prevention. And whereas, every Napa County resident can be an ally by knowing the signs of suicide, finding the words to communicate with somebody when they are concerned about, and reaching out to local resources for help. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, Margie Moeller, Mayor of the Town of Yountville, along with the Town Council, does hereby proclaim September 2024 as Suicide Prevention Month in Napa County. Thank you very, very much for all you do. So,
Thank you.
if you'd like to say a few words, and this is for you, so thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and council members, for supporting and acknowledging Suicide Prevention Month. My name is Arturo Garcia. I am a bilingual prevention specialist at Memphis Mental Health Center and a member of Napa County Suicide Prevention Council. My role is to provide QPR training, suicide prevention training within the community. Suicide affects every age, race, ethnicity, gender. Some communities have larger rates of suicide, including Native Americans, veterans, and LGBTQ+ youth. Over the past year, the Napa County Suicide Prevention Council has continued our commitment to break stigma, offer support, and train to community members on how to care for those who are struggling with thoughts of suicide and suicide loss. With the support of Napa County and Mental Health Services Act, we have published and implemented a 3-year strategy plan for suicide prevention. We are hosting our first suicide prevention conference, Hope Beyond Darkness, United for Suicide Prevention, which is taking place tomorrow, September 18, at the Napa Valley College. The conference will include powerful keynote speaker Candace Washington, a licensed clinical social worker, mother, Arthur veteran, and suicide survivor. We also have 6 breakout sessions related to the work we committed in our strategy plan. We hope to see you there. Your acknowledgement and recognition of suicide awareness is truly appreciated. Thank you, Town of Yountville.
Thank you very much for coming. And now it's time for public comment. This public comment is related to anything that is not on today's agenda. If you have any general public comment you'd like to bring forward to the council, you can step up. Seeing none, I am going to move on to our consent calendar. We have 13 items today, so unless you want to, yes, our town attorney would like to comment on our consent calendar.
Yeah, if I can, Mayor and council members, just 2 brief oral reports about 2 items on your consent calendar. For item 8L, this would amend the employment agreement with the town manager to increase base salary by 10% and allow his participation in the town's deferred compensation plans on the same terms as other employees. It would also grant a one-time performance bonus of 10% of his current base salary. For item 8M, and you'll hear more about this in just a moment from the town manager too, this would approve an employment agreement with Aaron Heacock, who's with us in the audience today, as planning and building director effective October 7th. It includes a base salary of $180,000 per year, CalPERS, vacation and administrative leave, auto allowance, and other benefits. All of these are in line with what other department heads get here in town. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you for that. So, town managers, you want to speak to consent item M?
I'll wait till you vote.
Okay, we'll vote. We'll see if we pass it, then might change your comment. All right, that's a good strategic move. All right, so, and if anybody wants to make a general comment, let's see if we can approve the consent calendar first, and then we can take general comments, and then we'll see if the town manager would like to comment on item M. So do we have a motion on approving our consent calendar today?
Move approval of the consent calendar.
Mayor, I'll second.
Okay, and we'll use our buttons to vote, please. Okay.
I'm missing one vote from Councilmember McKee Can't.
It just says waiting. Let me refresh.
I am going to ask you to use your button system.
Duh. It's been a month?
We've been on hiatus.
Waiting to
Thank
click
you.
the screen. Thanks.
And the consent calendar passes unanimously.
All right, thank you very much for that. So now, do we have any council comments they want to make on any items on the consent calendar? Councilmember Knight.
I just have a few shout-outs, if that's okay.
Sure.
For item C, I just wanted to thank, on item C, we approved the reappointment of 3 members to the Affordable and Workforce Housing Oversight Committee. And so I just wanted to thank Michael Manillo, Sandra Sandy Fagan and Elizabeth Bertolucci for reapplying and for their continued commitment to discussing, which I think in the next few years will be a active time, workforce, affordable and workforce housing in the community. And then, unless someone else was going to say something, I also was going to do a call out for item D. Shout out for those 3 members that reapplied to the Yountville Community Foundation. And those 3 members were Majel Arnold, Scott Owens, and Pamela Zidell, and to thank them for reapplying. And again, I think the Yountville Community Foundation will continue and get busier, I think, in the years ahead because there'll be programs that they'll be involved with. And last but not least, I just wanted to shout out to our Public Works Department for on the consent calendar. We approved item G, which was an investment in regrading a portion of Solano Avenue from the Veterans Home area to the town limits. And so I want to thank Director Ramirez and Deputy Director Ramirez and Director Ferns for your expertise and for thoughtful planning, doing this project when there was people, builders, roadwork people doing work in Napa, which probably made this saved us some money, but also to this work should help with our road index score, and it's a busy little portion of Yountville with the fire station there and the golf course, and so thank you for your work putting this project together. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Now, Town Manager, would you like to comment on M?
I would. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for the vote and confidence in me and the support of our staff. We have a great staff. As you know, you get to meet some new folks, and there's others that have been with us for a long time. So we're fortunate to have the staff we do here in Yountville. But I want to introduce Aaron Heacock and ask him to come to the microphone so he can talk about himself. But most of you know, for those in the audience, our former Planning and Building Director, Irene Borba, retired a couple months ago. So we went through a recruitment, and Aaron is coming to us from St. Helena, where he's been the senior planner for the last roughly decade. I was very impressed with both of his experience and his attitude, and I think living nearby town doesn't hurt either. But I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the community, and now that his contract has been approved, his start date will be October 7th, so in a few more weeks.
So I'd like to thank the council and Town Manager Ralston for this wonderful opportunity. I look forward to coming in and listening and learning and using my skills and experience to help the town thrive into the future. And I hope to be here for a long time, so I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We've got a lot of stuff for you to do once you get here, so enjoy your time between now and October the 7th. So.
Thank you so much.
But thanks for signing your contract and coming. And we have another comment on the consent from Councilmember McKee-Camp.
Thank you. Item K about us adopting the resolution to authorize and procure a gym-specific flooring at the new club. I want to point out that that expenditure is already within the budget. I had a few questions on that. So this is just already lumped into the funds that we have reserved to create that wellness center. It's not on top of, even though the floor will be on top of. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no other comments, we have no guest presentations tonight, so let's move on. We do have 2 public hearings, and I think that's what most of the people in the audience are here for. So the first public hearing is to consider adopting Resolution 24-4308, approving a use permit amendment to allow a 212-square-foot addition to a non-conforming building and a design review permit for exterior modification to an existing one-story commercial building at 6764 Washington Street. So, since this is a public hearing, let me just kind of walk through real quick how these kind of go. And if you forget, I'll kind of remind you as we move forward. So
Mayor?
first, we're going to ask if any council members have a statement to make.
I
And
must,
Councilmember Reeves, I'll recognize you.
Yes, I must recuse myself because I'm within 500 feet of this property, and I hope all goes well.
And can town clerk send her a text when we're done?
I will let you know when the item is complete.
Okay, thanks. So when somebody has to recuse himself, they have to leave the dais and leave the chambers, but they'll be back for the next item. So first I am going, after I open the public hearing, I'm going to ask council members if they have had any ex parte communication. That means any application, discussion with the applicant. They just have to talk about what they've talked about, and then we'll go to the planning director's staff report. Following that, we will ask the applicant if they would wish to come up to the microphone and address us. You have up to 15 minutes. If you feel like talking a lot, you can do that as well. And then we will bring it back to the any questions that the council may have for the planning director or the applicant. Then we'll go to general public comment, and then after that we'll allow time for any rebuttals that the applicant hears during public comment, if they'd like to address us at that time. And we'll also allow staff to respond to any public comments and the applicant rebuttal as well. Then we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for our discussion and deliberation. So with that, let's go ahead and ask if any of the council members have met with the applicant, and you could, if you have any. Nobody has, so at least not on a discussion topic related to this. I did see Ren at a party last Saturday, so anyway, that doesn't count. All right, so now if we could get a staff report from our planning director.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Moeller, council members, Ken McNabb, Interim Community Development Director. As the mayor did so aptly, the item before you is a request for design review approval and a use permit amendment for improvements to an existing structure known as Ponches at 6764 Washington Street. Just to start by orienting you to the project site, this is a graphic of the site, Washington Street. The west side of the property is at the lower end of your screen. The area in beige there, in the lower left corner, is the existing footprint of the building, which is about 1,282 square feet. And the area in red is the proposed expansion area that consists of some back-of-house trash and ADA-compliant restrooms. The larger gray area on the southern portion or right half of the site is an existing parking area, and then you have the garden area on the left side of the site. So as you probably all are aware, this is a 1920 era structure that's currently in a state of disrepair. A historic analysis was prepared and included in your staff report that determined that the structure is not eligible for listing on either the National Register or the State Register of Historic Places. Our effort with the applicant has been to help them achieve their vision of restoring the building back to its original state, so to speak, or at least its state dating back to when Ponches started operating, and that'll be the subject of our discussion going forward. Just to highlight the proposed modifications, it's generally to rehabilitate the exterior and interior of the structure. Changes to the exterior will include removing some of the existing stucco from the exterior facade, replacing it with horizontal siding, restoring, if possible, some of the original material, if not replacing with like material, and restoring the 3 windows that are prominently at the front of the portion of the building. The project will also add, as noted earlier, ADA compliant restrooms at the rear of the building, the area shown in red on this slide, and will also formalize 6 non-conforming parking spaces at the rear of the site. This slide shows the interior modifications being proposed. On the left side of your screen is the existing floor plan. The area in gray is what we call the back of house. The area in white's the public use area. And on the right is the proposed changes. The proposed remodel will reduce the public bar area, actually the public portion of the bar area, and increase the back of house area in gray, including the addition of the ADA bathroom. Directing your attention to the right side, the existing pool area and seating and card room will remain. As detailed in your staff report, I won't go through this whole table, but the project is generally in compliance with our zoning ordinance development standards. There are 2 existing non-conforming or legally non-conforming aspects of the project site. One is that the front of the building encroaches into the required setback area and actually into the public right-of-way. That's again a non-conforming, legally non-conforming condition. The project doesn't involve any expansion or further encroachment into that area. And the other non-conforming aspect is parking. There are only 6 parking spaces on the site. The current standard of 1 space per 3 seats is not going to be able to be met, and is not required to be met. Talking a little bit about the design elements, the design intent, as I mentioned earlier, is to restore the building to its original look and feel. Proposed modifications, again, removal of stucco and restoration of replacement of the original siding. Restore the gable roof entry. You can see on the lower illustration where the front door is, that gabled roof was an original element that doesn't exist today but is proposed to be restored. Replace the 3 and replacement of the 3 windows up front, again, is shown on that lower illustration. The materials and colors include composition shingle roofing. I believe it's red cedar wood siding. The applicant can correct me if I'm wrong. And anodized aluminum frame windows. There are 2 color schemes being contemplated. One kind of I'll call a olive green or olive gray, excuse me, and one more of a slate gray, as shown here on your slide. On design, there were 3 issues that we discussed or brought to the ZDRB's attention for input and recommendations. The first, if you look on the left side, is this gable overhang or gable roof element. The original building had at its peak a little extension of the gable that went out 6 inches above kind of where the current roof is now. Architecturally, the treatment, preferred treatment might be to pull that 6-inch extension back so that it's flush with the shed roof. The ZDRB considered that discussion point. I should also mention the applicant was open to making that revision. Ultimately, the ZDRB decided to not require that extension be pulled back in the interest of just kind of recreating or keeping the building in its original form. The second design element has to do with the unused door. You'll see kind of more just to the more central, the center circle there at the bottom. There is a unused door on the south elevation of the building. This is a non-functioning door. It does not actually go through to the building. In discussions with the applicant team and with the ZDRB, there was agreement that door should be removed, which the applicant's agreeable to. It doesn't create any exiting or safety concerns. So that is a recommendation of the ZDRB that's been included in your conditions of approval. And then the last item relates to rooftop mechanical equipment. As you probably all know, if you're walking up Washington Street from the south, you can see that mechanical equipment on the roof as you walk by the entrance to the parking area. Staff recommended and the ZDRB concurred we should have a condition of approval that requires screening around that equipment, and the applicant is agreeable to that. So recommendation both from the ZDRB and from staff is that the council adopt a resolution finding the project exempt from CEQA, approving the major design review permit and use permit amendment subject to conditions of approval. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to hold any questions until we have let the applicant come up and give him some time, and then we'll go back and ask questions of both.
Okay.
Ren, you have the microphone. Would you like to come up and say anything? You don't have to, but here's your opportunity if you'd like to.
I'm Ren Harris, and I'd just like to thank Brad and Mayor and the council for getting us through this. And I thought I'd remark that my wife, Marilyn, behind me, was a student in the 1940s at this building. Other than that, thanks for your help, and we look forward to restoring Poncha. Poncha was a friend of mine, and I bought the property from her grandson/nephew, and I can explain that later. Thank you.
We'll meet you for a beer and talk about it. Okay, so now does the council have any questions for either our staff or the applicant? Vice Mayor Tripp.
I wanted to ask Interim Director McNabb, and this is more out of just an understanding. I applaud the revitalization of Ponchas, and I know it will be a great addition to the community. But one of the things I did want to ask, I like the chart that shows sort of the zoning requirement, the existing and the proposed. And you mentioned this also in your verbal presentation, that there is a zoning requirement of, and the chart says this, 1 space per 3 seats. What would that actually equate to? I read through all this. If you were to require it, what would the current zoning require? How many parking spaces?
That's a good question. It's a little hard for me to identify the number of seats, as obviously would be calculated based on the number of seats. So there are seats around the bar. And
is there anything in the use permit that says how many seats?
No.
It's all related to the actual square footage?
Yeah, the use permit is surprisingly minimal for the level of detail it goes into as far as what has been approved. It generally talks about a bar use. It talks about, music indoor only, and talks about, limited food offerings. It does not specify a number of seats recognized at the time of the original application.
Typically, our use permits, though, do have, well, two things come to mind. Our use permits do have speak to the number of guests allowed, and then of course the overarching requirement would be what the fire marshal will allow.
Yes.
So I guess those are two questions. What would I guess what you're saying is you're not sure what our current zoning standard would require in terms of limitations on the number of people.
It would be dependent on the number of seats, obviously, and I don't know, and that's why I was saying if the applicant could give us a rough estimation, let's say there's 20 seats.
So there's no limitation, basically, how many people could in theory, go into the building except the fire code?
It would be the fire code would limit occupancy, but because this use was established at a time there wasn't a standard applied, they get to, for lack of a better term, enjoy the benefit of not having to meet current parking requirements. And they're not changing or intensifying the use. They're actually reducing the amount of public seating area in this proposal.
Although we don't know how many seats. You're saying they're
based on
reducing the
square
square
footage,
footage.
yes.
Right. So, and then this, and again, I really support this, although I think it could get pretty crowded in there, and parking is just always something we have to pay attention to. So in general, are you, because it is an existing use, are you grandfathered in notwithstanding any changes you're making?
I will answer it, and then I might defer to the town attorney, but yes, you're grandfathered to the permit that was approved, and in this case, because there were not any specified limitations, restrictions with respect to parking or occupancy, they do get to enjoy that as long as they continue with their current use. Now, if they were to modify their use, expand it, intensify it, that does give the town the ability to revisit, application of current standards because they are changing the use. But right now, it's largely staying the same. And I don't know if the town attorney has anything to add to that.
I'm happy to answer additional questions if you have any. I agree with that analysis.
That basically, because it's not changing the use materially.
That's right. So they have a vested right to continue the use as it existed. So the reason why there's a use permit is it is legal non-conforming. The town's municipal code says if you're going to expand a non-conforming use or building, you have to do so by a use permit. So but for that, there wouldn't be a use permit piece to this.
Okay. And I apologize for saying grandfathered. That's probably inappropriate nowadays.
Legal non-conforming.
What is the proper term?
Vested rights.
Vested rights.
Legal non-conforming.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Interim Director.
So what was the date of the existing use permit? Just for
1993. So
1993.
It's over 30 years
Okay.
old.
Come a long ways before parking and a lot of different requirements. So, Councilmember Knight, you have questions for the staff or
Yes.
applicant?
For the staff, thank you. Now, I was going to guess it was in the 1980s that was the use permit, but still fairly early in kind of our town's planning history.
And
so,
not to belabor the point, but it's also probably important that the use as a bar, I believe, dates back to 1960, probably before we even had use permit requirements. So the use itself is, 60 plus years old, if I'm doing my math right.
I think just yesterday I was in the town manager's office looking at pictures of signs of the community, and there was one of the two spots. So, and probably some of these, the redesign might be going back to the look of the two spot, which probably Poncha's continued that use that had been going on for, you're right, way back into the 60s or something like that. So, or earlier than that. So I just had a question about just a quick question about the gabled roof element. So I appreciate that ZDRB said, fine, it can extend out if it wants to. Is that a condition? I'm just curious, is that a condition that required it to, or just a non-position taken? So if the applicant's general contractor says would be better to bring it back, will they be able to make that decision themselves?
It was the latter. Their original proposal included the extension. They were agreeable to changing it if the ZDRB supported that. They did not. So there is no condition requiring it be pulled back 6 inches, and the plans, should you approve them today, would allow them to do that 6 inches, or as you say, if there's a change in thinking, they could not do it, and we would be able to find that's in substantial conformance and not have to bring them back for, review by the ZDRB or council.
And that's fine, because that gabled element was there less than a year ago. I mean, it's been there forever, and that's good. So I'm glad that they just allow that flexibility. No, I support this use permit amendment, and I'm happy to move it forward whenever we're ready. And I want to thank the applicants for bringing back this to us, and it's a very important part of history for Yountville, and it also it's just a reminder of the town, that I grew up in, and so around, and so thank you for the work you're doing on this project.
Okay, so I'm going to next go to the public to see if the public has any comment, and just to kind of keep reminding everybody of all the steps. Then we'll, after we take public comment, we'll allow time for the applicant to rebut any public comment or anything that they've heard from the staff, and then I will allow staff to do the same before we bring it to the council. So now, if anybody from the public would like to come up and address us, you can just come up to the microphone and just state your name, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'm Paul Frank. My wife and I have had a home here in Yountville since 1992. And in full disclosure, we have a small minority interest in the property only, but not in the business at all. We wanted to become involved because of our long friendship with Marilyn Wren and also with Scott Lewis, and knowing them to be people of such great character and integrity. We were also very enthusiastic about their plans to maintain the historic nature of this community icon. And also, we were very enthusiastic about their plans to upgrade and make it a safe, fun place for the community and for visitors to visit. We hope that you agree and they get a very timely approval, because I can't wait for the reopening of Ponchas.
Thank you, Mr. Frank. Would anybody else like to come up and address the council on this item?
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Nice to see you. Whitney Diver McAvoy with the Yountville Chamber of Commerce. This is such an exciting day. I think it's one we've been waiting for quite some time, to have Ponchas renewed and reopening very soon. And Ren and Marilyn, thank you so much for your investment in bringing this business back to life, and Scott, bringing your expertise to what we know is a wonderful career in hospitality and wine. So I know this is going to be making a lot of people very, very happy, and the Yountville Chamber stands fully behind the support of this business and their operations here in town, and again, diversifying our offerings that we have and honoring the historic nature of our community. So it's great to have them back, and I urge you to support this item. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Whitney. Do we have any other? Oh, we do have some more public comment.
Alan Tenscher, Yountville. I just wanted to comment something that came up during the ZDRB review of this was the 6-foot encroachment into the public right-of-way, which creates a challenge for pedestrian access. And since it hadn't come up at this meeting, I wanted to make sure that it got into the record that the town manager said that that will be dealt with as part of work on the whole North Washington pedestrian access. So very important part. Happy to have Ponchas back. Look forward to being able to walk 1 block and enjoy a beverage. So thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to finish the public comment and then give the applicant time for a rebuttal if they want, and then we'll come back to staff. So, any other public comment from anybody in the audience? Do we have anything that we received by email?
No, Mayor. We received no other comment.
Okay, great. So, along with the process here, so would the applicant like to come up again and have any rebuttals to anything that you've heard?
You know, Scott's looking at me, and I did want to address the sidewalk, and I did want to confirm the discussion we've had, and I think we were prepared to discuss. There is a condition of approval that, in essence, says that the applicant will either construct or contribute to, and you can see on the diagram, this solution. The solution just connects the sidewalks from the north to the south. It also does create a significant area, which in the future we have discussed what we refer to as a Washington Street activation permit, which would potentially allow them to use a portion of the right-of-way beyond what's currently used. But I think for purposes of today and discussions, there's an option, but I believe my understanding, I'd like Scott or Ren or whomever to confirm, is that they intend to construct this as part of their project. And if that's the case, then we don't have to talk about the amount of the contribution.
Yes, we're going to help with doing that, putting the construction up for the walkway. It works out best for us as well with regards to what we have planned with our architect. As a result, right now we have water that's going into Ponches, so it's a win-win on both sides.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we are ready to allow staff to respond to any public comments or the applicant rebuttal.
Staff has no additional comments. Thank you, Mayor.
And Town Manager?
That's it. I just wanted to make sure the motion reflects that they'll construct what do we refer to it as in the condition?
Yeah, there is a condition in the Public Works section of attachment or Exhibit A that does reference participating in construction of improvements on Washington and has the exhibit that we just had up on the screen attached to it.
So it's in the resolution that was in our packet.
Yeah, and if we could just pull up that exact condition number so that we can revise it for the record. I think that's attachment 1A for the conditions.
It's condition number 3 under, number 3 under Public Works conditions. I can redo the language. I don't have it available to bring up on the screen.
That should be on page 3 of that attachment. It's the condition that reads, project shall construct or contribute to right-of-way enhancement. Staff is proposing to revise it to project shall construct right-of-way enhancement.
Is that under A, B, or C? Which?
It's the Public Works condition number 3, which is on page 3 of Exhibit A, which is the second. Let me pull up the attachment.
It's attachment 1A in your
attachment
staff report.
1A to the resolution.
So, Attorney Bell, does it go without saying that it would meet certain specifications? Does that kind of go without saying that? I see John Fern's nodding, but I'm guessing there's a whole book of sidewalk specifications.
I will also nod. There are a lot of sidewalk specifications, and anyone who constructs it would need to follow those, and so that would be part of it. And the Public Works Director and his team would make sure that those are all followed here. Is there a revised exhibit to include in 1A that the clerk has, and if so, we just want to make sure that makes it into the record.
Yes, the clerk forwarded to council, I believe, the exhibit that we showed up on the screen that the town manager has in front of them for reference.
All right, so that would include a slight revision to the condition to remove the words or contribute to, and a different exhibit, which has been distributed to you. Copies are also available to the public. Those are the 2 revisions being proposed by staff.
So what was the first one before or contribute to?
Yes, it's a slight revision to the Public Works conditions in attachment 1A.
Okay.
Bullet point 3, the words or contribute to would be removed. And there's a new exhibit that's been distributed to you that the clerk has, and it's also available for the public. That has the specifications.
Mary just had one question of staff when we're ready.
Yeah, okay, so does the staff have anything else, or the applicant, before I bring it back to council for some more questions? Seeing none, I will bring it back to
I have one
the council.
question here.
So do you have questions for either the staff or the applicant?
Just a question about the path, sidewalk area. So considering this is like Old Town historic commercial, and between Madison and in one of the streets in North End, the sidewalk conditions are different. There's concrete, asphalt. I'm just in terms of the standard. Is there for that area? Is there enough direction from staff to the type of surface that we require? And I'm just curious to see. I know it down by Padroni we've got concrete, and then other places there's asphalt. So across the way as you're walking in and crossing Hopper Creek. So will it follow the sidewalk materials that are like in front of the commercial businesses just north of Padroni?
I think I can answer. I look back at our public works director. I'm sure he'll correct me if I'm wrong. But yes, the current standards are concrete. So in terms of it matching the surface, that would be the intent to continue the sidewalk.
We'll follow that, and that conforms with Old Town commercial or commercial. So as long as that is, we're continuing the surface and it's consistent, then yeah, I'm fine. Thank you.
Is that all your questions?
That is. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Keycant, questions?
I had this question set for the first round of questions. While I understand that there's the door on the side of the building and it actually is not functional, I am assuming that emergency evacuations are already accounted for by the number of occupants that could feasibly be in both the front of the house and the back of the house, and the doors in the front and the back, so it's not needed?
That is correct. This project was referred to fire, and also will get referred to fire again for a second review when they come in for their building permits. But yes, I believe the entry at the front of the building and the exit at the rear of the building are sufficient for emergency exiting of the structure of the building.
Thank you.
Seeing no more questions from the council, I'm going to close the public hearing, and now I'm going to bring it back to council. You've got, we'll have up to, first, if somebody would like to make a motion, then we can debate that motion with up to 2 rounds of comments from the council. So, council, you want to
make a motion?
Looking for the light. Okay, Vice Mayor Tripp would like to speak.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move we approve the project happily with the change in the resolution regarding the sidewalk construction, and that will be undertaken by the applicant and meet whatever requirements are necessary.
So, Gary, would you like the maker of the motion to read the motion?
No, I hope not. I don't have it in front of me. Sorry. Thank you.
I can repeat back the amendments that we talked about, if that would be helpful, and then you can move the recommendation with those amendments. Okay. So the amendment is to attachment 1A under the Public Works conditions, paragraph 3. The words "or contribute to" in that sentence are removed, so that it reads "project shall construct right-of-way enhancement consistent with the attached exhibit," and there's a revised exhibit that's been distributed to you all. So you can move the staff recommendation with those proposed changes.
So I move the staff recommendation with those proposed changes.
Okay. Sound good?
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion on a second. So any discussion? While everyone's sitting there, I'm going to tell my little story. When I moved here, probably a little more than 25 years ago, and just a few weeks after we got here, my husband came home one day and said he was walking around town and he saw this really interesting bar at the north end of town, and we should probably go check it out. So probably the next day, off we went, and we walked in the front door, and there was a couple extra empty bar stools in the middle of the day, and we met Rose for the first time, and we met Jenny for the first time, and Bobby. The whole gang was there. So, and all the locals who show up during the day. And, we got a beer and watched a tourist come in, try to get a frozen drink, and pay with a credit card. And we quickly learned that you didn't do either one of those things. And there's a whole lot of history. I ran my first campaign there, and always had campaign night on election night at Ponch's Bar. I always had to share it with the pool league, so it was always like everybody was partying. We weren't even sure what we were celebrating most of the time. But anyway, I'm very thrilled that Ren has stepped up and purchased Ponch's. It's got a lot of memories for me, and I know him as well. So I'm in full hearty support of seeing Ponch's open again. So, and I hope you don't have any frozen drinks, or I'm not sure about the credit cards. I will leave that up to you. But some traditions are pretty important. So anyway, those are my comments. Any other comments? I see Councilmember McKee can't.
I fully support this. I think retaining this flavor of Northtown is so key, and I don't know anybody in the community that isn't thrilled about this. So wholeheartedly support it, and thank you very much for purchasing the property and bringing this business back to life, and in tribute to Rose and family. Thank you.
See, no more Oh,
no, sorry.
Okay, you're good. So no more comments. So with that, we have a motion and a second, and we're going to that was our brief discussion. We're going to hit our buttons and do the vote. Town Clerk, is that what you'd like for us to do? All right.
Yes, Mayor. That item passes.
So the reopening of Ponch's is official in Yountville. So really looking forward to it. And staff, thank you very much. And Ren, congratulations. And welcome everybody to a new era. So
it's going to be a great ribbon cutting.
So with that, if anybody would like to leave, you can. We've got one more public hearing, or you can hang out. I'll leave it up to you. Our next public hearing is we're going to be considering adopting a Resolution 24-4309, approving an amendment to the safety element of the Yountville General Plan to incorporate by reference the 2020 Napa County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. And so with that,
we're waiting for.
I texted Councilmember Reeves, but I'm going to go get her to bring her back.
Okay, good, thank you.
She got the news.
Yeah. Welcome back.
We did pass it. I watched it. Oh, that's right.
We'll give town manager a couple minutes to head back this way, unless he's going to go party with those guys. Then we're going to have to maybe call for a quick close here. No, he's coming back. All right. We thought you were going to go party with the crowd. So anyway, we're almost done. Okay, so our second public hearing, I just announced the item on the agenda. So I guess nobody with this public comment, this is not going to, we don't really have to follow the strict tradition. We don't have an applicant in this case. So we'll just go go through a modified version. So with that, I am going to just start by opening the public hearing and ask. Yes, there will. Every public hearing there is. And every item, in fact. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing and ask staff for a staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Ken McNabb again, Interim Community Development Director. The item before you is an amendment to the safety element of the town's general plan. The proposed amendments, which I would characterize as technical versus substantive, incorporate references to the 2020 Napa County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan, which the Town Council participated in and approved back in May of 2020. The purpose of adding these references or incorporating these references is to make the town eligible for greater reimbursement for qualifying expenses during an emergency event. Typically, FEMA will reimburse up to 75% of eligible expenses. The state will reimburse up to 75% of the remaining 25% of eligible expenses. And by adding the reference to the Napa County Multi-Hazard or Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan, that's a mouthful, that will allow the state to reimburse above the 75% of their 25% share of qualifying emergency expenses. Staff is recommending that the council, pass a resolution adopting the proposed amendments. The ZDRB considered this item, and they also forward a recommendation that council approve these amendments. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that report. Now let's see if the council has any questions for staff. We have no questions for staff, so I am going to ask the public if they would like to come up and provide any comments on this item. I guess the public has changed their mind on public comment. So, okay, there we go. So I am then going to I'm going to close the public comment and for this public hearing and bring it back to the council. If anybody would like to make a motion and a second, then we can debate it.
Mayor, I
try that button one more time.
Pardon? I'm sorry.
Okay,
Rusty on my
Councilmember
buttons.
Oh.
I move that we adopt resolution number 24-4309, approving the amendment to safety element of Yountville General Plan to incorporate by reference the 2020 Napa County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan.
A second.
Okay, so with that is so this is we are making a approving an amendment to the general plan. Is that correct? So this is we're going to be waiving the first reading, and this is going to come back.
I believe that it's a resolution action. It's not an ordinance.
Okay, so it's just a resolution that we. So by this resolution, we can make the amendment to the general plan.
That is correct.
Okay, so it's just by a public hearing. Got it. So, any questions, debating? Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
That item passes unanimously.
All right, thank you very much. So that concludes our two public hearings for the day. And we have one administrative item. This is consideration of adopting Resolution 24-4310, approving the Yountville Legacy Trail concept and authorizing the town manager to work with the donor, staff, and the Art Commission to move the project forward. So, Samantha, are you giving us the, no, Brad is giving the report.
I'll do it with Sam's support.
Right.
So thank you, Mayor. As you all know, the town is preparing for its 60th anniversary of incorporation, which will be on February 4th of next year. The Town Council created two ad hoc subcommittees to help guide the celebration, one of which will sort of work to recognize our history. The other is going to help organize the event. At the July 16th Town Council meeting, the Council heard an item to accept a donation from Rob Orr of a life-size bronze historical sculpture of George Yount to be placed in front of Town Hall. The proposal received feedback, and Council asked staff to work with the subcommittee as well as the Public Art Committee and come back with a recommendation. So that's what we're here for this evening or this afternoon. The joint subcommittee between the ad hoc committee, which is made up of Mayor Moeller and Councilmember Knight, met with a subcommittee of the Public Art Committee, which was made up of members Cher, Meredith, and Kepchin. Met with Sam and I to discuss that. We had a conversation where we discussed the expanded version of what was at that time referred to as the Legacy Walk or the Legacy Trail has emerged, and now at the most recent Public Art Committee meeting, which was last week, they adopted that unanimously in terms of having the Legacy Trail, which is in essence the idea of including George Yount sculpture that was the proposed donation in front of Town Hall, and expanding that to include statues or an art piece of Sally Schmidt and Francis Solis, Pancha. So I was surprised our Pancha crowd didn't stay, but if approved, this would evolve into potentially more in the future. The Arts Commission Art Walk Subcommittee will work with the staff to call or create an advertising for a call for entry for a sculpture design that would include Sally Schmidt and Pancha. The concept is that the sculpture would be them at a table in the Hopper Creek Pocket Park adjacent to the French Laundry Garden. I think everyone knows that Sally Schmidt was the original founder of the French Laundry, and Pancha lived across the street. And these two women in the late 1960s came together and were arguably the pioneers for California cuisine or farm to table, which I think is an important part of the story of the town, particularly the last 60 years. So there's information about all of that and the history of them in the staff report. The call for entry in terms of the Art Commission sculpture would be our traditional process. As you know, the George Yount sculpture was a donation, and so if approved tonight, I would work with the donor to finalize an agreement so we would accept the donation. And then the goal would be on February 4th to unveil the sculpture, if approved, in the front of Town Hall, and to have approved concepts or an opportunity at the February 4th meeting, because it is a Tuesday, by the way. We intend to have a council meeting to discuss the concepts and potentially fund the Sally and Pancha art piece. So that's my portion of the report. Anything you want to add? No. So we're open for questions and obviously public comment.
Okay, thank you. So, any questions from any council members on the staff report? Councilmember McKee-Kant.
So for February 4th, 2025, I know we're going to be doing the call for art for Sally Schmidt and Pancha, but financially, if we don't feel like we're in that mode to spend that money at that time, is there a way that we can still table this to move forward, but maybe not promise an amount of money at the time that you can foresee? Just trying to be conservative as we're also spending a lot of money at the school to get it up and running.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I think the idea, it doesn't cost that much to get to a concept. I'm not sure what we afford.
So we're paying
artists.
for the concept at that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then whatever funding would become, and then, you would all decide if that was, or the council would decide.
Okay, thank you. That gives more clarification.
Councilmember Reeves.
I had a question on the staff report. It talks about the ad hoc committee expanding their role to develop the standards and protocols for how we decide on future sculptures and placement on the art walk or the legacy trail. I dislike that word. I wish we could think of a better word. But that's a significant expansion of their duty, and I'd like to have a little discussion around that. Well, maybe I should explain. Maybe I should explain. I feel like the whole council should be involved in developing those protocols and requirements, because it is a big part of this concept, and I think it needs to come through the council as a whole.
Well, what I would say is, first of all, on the name, we had proposed Legacy Walk. The Public Art Committee unanimously liked Legacy Trail. I mean, you can obviously change it back or change it to whatever you want. That's within your purview. As it relates to process, I kind of look to Sam to advise on the other part of your suggestion.
Yeah, so as it relates to the specific proposal for the Sally and Pontius sculpture, the Arts Commission, they have an Art Walk subcommittee, would look at developing the call for artists with staff support, and then that would come back to the council to take a look at before we pushed it out. And then they would narrow that down, and then you, of course, always have the final approval on any permanent sculpture that comes to town. As far as I think your question is geared, I was trying to find in the staff report that the 60th anniversary subcommittee would be in charge of developing these protocols. Is that correct? Or is it, yeah. I was trying to find that.
First paragraph under discussion and background, last sentence. I had highlighted.
Yeah.
It will complement the existing Art Walk and develop standards and protocols if approved by the town council.
So just for this application, then?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think what you're suggesting is if there are future proposals for people to be recognized, then yeah, our intent would be that the council would approve those. So we can clarify that, but I see how it's a little confusing there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Tripp.
So I just wanted to make sure I kind of followed how all this transpired. So the idea of adding more sculptures and making it into a legacy walk and then investing in that corner up there, that wasn't an independent thing. That was prompted by this whole potential donation of George Yount. Is that correct? Or did I get that right? That grew out of the council considering George Yount placement in front of Town Hall. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think there was a confluence of things, but I think in the idea of actually doing bronzes of Sally and Poncha, I think we were already trying to deal with the sidewalk, I think, as you know, in front of French Laundry, and then we have issues with our pocket park that's adjacent. So meanwhile, we were talking to the Public Art Committee about the relocation of some sculptures. So I think all of those things, but yeah, I think the specific answer is because of the bronze was, well, why don't we, there was some suggestions about, other figures and pioneers, et cetera. So that was where the idea sprouted from.
And I'll be very interested to hear, because I have some thoughts, but I would like to hear from the public on this. But just so I understand the process, was there a decision at the last meeting that the sculpture would be placed of George Yount in the front of Town Hall? I guess I'm not really clear whether that was approved or not. And it helps me to understand where we are in the process.
Yeah, we didn't include the exact motion from the previous meeting that's referred to the July 16th meeting, but generally, and we can pull that exact language because you kind of crafted a motion verbally that in essence said that and it was a 401 vote, as you know, with
Right, I
with you
abstained,
abstaining, that in essence said that we would accept the donation and that we needed to work through the process with the public art group or the subcommittee, and that I think the phrase was that I need to work out the details, something to that effect.
So
I'm looking at our
what
clerk
would we
who's
be doing?
I can confirm that in that resolution that was approved, it removed any reference to placement at Town Hall, and I think that was in recitals 1 and 3 of that specific resolution.
So we basically accepted the art donation, but didn't provide as to where it would go. Is that
correct?
Understanding. Okay. And then today the resolution would be to, what would we be, what is before us today? Let me just ask you that.
Excuse me. There is now a site plan, and the maquette is referred to as, which was also unavailable at the July 16th meeting. So you can now see in the site plan or the concept design that the millstones would be placed where the current school book is, the handprint book, and then behind, kind of along that, there's. You see we've removed a lot of landscape, but the oak tree that we intended is kind of a reference point on the diagram. So if you look outside, that would be where the sculpture or the bronze would be behind the millstones, kind of in the landscape area. And it would be similar to the clay representation that you see there. And then the other diagram, which is of the Hopper Creek Pocket Park, is simply just a concept. That would be more open to, artists coming in and making proposals and, coming up with different ideas on how to incorporate Sally and Poncha into that park setting.
So, and I apologize because I'm having some computer problems in terms of pulling stuff up. So the action would be to approve basically the layout of the park. Is that included in our materials?
Well, the park is conceptual. It is.
In the front here.
In the front, yeah.
Is that in our materials?
It is in your materials,
okay,
yes.
Then I apologize. I couldn't pull it up. Okay, thank you. That was all my questions. Thank you, Town Manager.
What would you like to see?
I was just going to say that the diagram we're referring to, which is the back of the staff report, we're referring to the Town Hall entry concept design.
Okay, Councilmember Knight, questions?
So I don't have a lot of questions other than maybe just I look forward to our discussion. But I think in terms of just the background of my experience, I do agree with Councilmember Reeves that as we go forward, it's good to have more involvement in the discussion, because really what brought this legacy walk, legacy trail forward was really that discussion where we expanded, other than just the mayor and I, we had members of the Art Commission there, and we were there to talk about the Georgette bronze, but what led to a larger discussion is to talk about the history of Yountville, to recognize the fact that we have of looking at the people that have contributed to the community and expanding and including some women that had a significant impact in this community's growth in the last 50 years. So we've gotten to a point now, I think, with our 60th incorporation anniversary, is that this opportunity to really look forward, to look back, but to look forward in how our community has developed, to honor a history that includes, that I hope in the future, if we're talking about a legacy trail or walk, includes a history of Native Americans and Georgette and the Veterans Home and Halderman and the creation of the Veterans Home, but also just leads us forward to, what Don Schmidt and Sally Schmidt and Francis Solis contributed to this community. And so this concept, I think, of a legacy walk or trail really complements our art walk. It's really an invitation to people who come here to really expand our sense of what it means for our community to be a walking community, to encourage that. And I see a lot of opportunity to really invest, as we are doing in the community, Yountville Commons, to invest in the community and invest in what it means to have a walking community, and where visitors will want to come and enjoy this, the town of Yountville as we develop in the future. So I think there's opportunities for a lot more discussion, community building, talking about the history of the town and who has influenced it, and continue it. And it'll be, I think the history is fascinating. I think people will enjoy it. And I think it leads us to being more involved with the Pioneer Cemetery and recognizing that Indian burial ground and the Pioneer Cemetery is an important part of our history as well. So.
Okay. Councilmember Reeves.
I just wanted to check with staff before we open it to the public, just to make sure, have we talked to the families of Sally Schmidt and Francis Solis, just to make sure that they're good with this idea?
We have.
Good.
Councilmember McKee Cant.
I wanted to echo what Councilmember Knight said, that as we're including artifacts, that we definitely should include Native American history as well. When the idea of the Yount sculpture first came up, we had a little bit of concern thinking of this big 8-foot stature on a pedestal, and I just couldn't quite envision it alone. But as your dialogue, especially with the Arts Council, continued, I think this does provide a more dimensional and elevated kind of visitor experience, as well as helps us be in touch kind of with our roots as well. I think Commissioner Lay had a great idea to call it trail, so it didn't overlap with Art Walk, and in telling people about it, there's a clear delineation between the two. It's an activity. I mean, I am always hounding, we need more points of interest and more things to do here in town. So when visitors say, what is there to do? We actually have some things, and it's free and it's historic. So I think it's evolved, no matter how it evolved, whether, it was away from us or right before us. I think it, in essence, is a good idea and a good thing for the community.
Seeing no more questions from the council, I am going to take public comment on this item. So if anybody would like to give us your public comment, come on up to the microphone and give us your name.
Okay, La Franconi from Yount Street. I'm here to express my strong opposition to a proposed life-size statue of George Yount. He was and is a significant figure in the town's history, but putting up another monument to him in today's social climate feels deeply out of touch. The values and ideologies memorialized on public land reflect the reality we choose to remember, whether it's a statue, a plaque, or a mural. In the wake of George Floyd's death and the removal of numerous Confederate symbols, we've been forced to confront how public symbols contribute to promoting cultural bias, racism, and sexism. Questioning these values isn't unpatriotic, it's a deeply American right and rooted in our national conversations about justice and equality. We must be mindful of how public memorials shape the narratives we pass on to future generations. It's also important to acknowledge that Yountville already has several physical tributes to George Yount: the rock with his likeness, the bust in Town Hall, the large marker in the cemetery. In contrast, our only nod to the indigenous people who lived long before, millennia before Mr. Yount, is a few words in a small script that is etched into one square in Vandeleur Park's walking path. And that is something that can be walked over, and there's no figurative representation to humanize their story. Beyond Yount, the town has accepted and purchased several figurative sculptures, all of which depict white men. From the judge to the chef to the Faces of Freedom, there is little representation of women or people of color. Nationally, 88% of statues depict white males, with no American women appearing in the top 20 most commemorated figures. Harriet Tubman is the first to appear on the list, and she's down the list at number 24. There's also, in my opinion, there's also the potential for negative economic impact if this statue is perceived as a celebration of white culture at the expense of the diverse people who have contributed to the Yountville's history. Younger, more diverse visitors may feel alienated by yet another monument to a white male settler, especially when we have an opportunity to make our public spaces more inclusive. Given all of this, I strongly urge the Council to reconsider the appropriateness of a life-size statue of Mr. Yount. The values we choose to memorialize in Yountville should reflect the diversity and complexity of our community and our history. And one last addendum, it seems like it's being rolled up into the Pioneer Walk, and I think that walk should start with Indigenous people and not with George Yount. And I also think that the cost of creating those other sculptures needs to be factored in before we place this sculpture in town. Otherwise, it's going to be 20 years before we have those other sculptures in place, and he'll be the only one there, which would belie the intention of the Pioneer Walk. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come up and address the council?
Alan Tencher, Jefferson Street. I don't think I could have said one half of my sentiment or one half of the reason that I'm here before you today better than Kay did. I thought that was beautifully said and actually expresses the complexity of how we as a town want to represent ourselves. We're in very interesting times right now, and I look at Whitney too, that I think we need, rather than ad hoc, this is a complicated and big discussion. Who are we? What are we? You know, we have a very large component, which is our business, but we also have residents. We have all this. So anyway, I'm just expressing sympathy and alignment with what Kay said, but also that it's a larger discussion, and I think we need to be careful of it. And I appreciate your comments on the financial implications of this. Now, the other reason I'm here is I was in attendance in the July meeting, and it really seemed the cart got ahead of the horse. I think somebody decided that they had a sculpture they wanted to donate. I think somebody thought that was a good idea, and then I think a lot of this rolled in to make that original decision seem okay. So I think process is really important, and I think when somebody wants to give the town something, whether it be a bench, which is coming before us tomorrow night, or a statue or anything else, I think we need to make sure that there is a process in place to how we move forward with those. So thank you for your thoughtful consideration on all of this.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public would like to come and address us? With or without sign?
Whitney with the Yountville Chamber. Kay and Alan, I couldn't have said it better myself. I I completely agree. It does feel like a little bit of cart before the horse. And Brad, I know we've talked about it multiple times, but it feels like it's a little bit too soon. So maybe just taking a step back and backing up and seeing what the full plan looks like. I think there are many ways to honor our 60th birthday. It doesn't need to be with a sculpture of George Yount. And I think Kay remarks that we have many ways that we're already honoring him in town. And I think that's wonderful. Is this the other way we need to do that? I don't know, but maybe we have a larger discussion about that. And I think also Alan makes a really good point about what we are as a town and also how we're selling our town to other people and what we are representing once people get here. So happy to be a part of the discussion moving forward, but maybe we just take a minute and pause on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? And with that, I'm going to bring it back for council discussion and possible, we have a resolution on the table, so I would like to make a motion in a second so we can debate.
Mayor, can we speak? Do we need a motion before we comment?
Just offering that up if people would like to speak. I see.
I think I might be on your lighted
Yes,
dais there.
Just making sure nobody wants to make a motion. With that, Vice Mayor Tripp.
Yeah, I think this is a complicated topic, and I abstained last time because I hadn't really thought it through. And I would say I completely agree with, and I couldn't, as Mr. Tencher said, say it any better than Kay did. But I would like to just, lest I get put in a reactionary category, just make a few statements about this. I do think it's important to acknowledge California history and the history of Yountville. No question about that. I'm a third generation of Californian, and my dad dragged us to all the missions, I think, and I remember Sutter Fort, and it's a very important part of understanding where we are today. And I also understand that historical figures are a product of their time, and it's not my intention to judge anybody's historical contribution like George Yount according to my current values. And so I am sensitive to this idea of sort of cancel culture, which a couple of people suggested that might be the direction I'm going in. But I'm not suggesting we take down anything relating to George Yount. I loved the Millstones when I moved here, and I thought, what a cool place that not only do they have them out there, but then they have special little covers for them. I thought that is very cool. And I like the bust of George Yount, and so I'm not suggesting we take any of that down or change in any way that we honor George Yount. In addition to some of the sensitivities around how we became California and acknowledging the contributions not just of the Native Americans, but the people who cultivated the land, the people who were here in addition to people like George Yount. I think the front of the town hall is the gateway to our town and our new Yountville Commons. And I would really like it to appeal to visitors and residents and draw people in. And I personally don't quite understand this, taking pictures in front of sculptures, but I see so many people in front of Rocky the dog that I would love to see people drawn down the street to Town Hall to take pictures and be drawn into the front of Town Hall. And as Whitney alluded to, and the recent study by the Welcome to Napa Valley Visitors Center is we have increasingly diverse visitors and people who have actually from throughout the world, and many of whom have very different views of colonialism and just come from different backgrounds. So I think it's worth being sensitive and thinking about that. And I do think it's worthwhile to take a step back because I feel like personally we are not ready to commit to finishing a legacy walk. So really the only piece in the near term, and I'm pretty, as Council Member McKee Kent alluded to, we have some large expenditures coming up with the Commons, and I would really like to focus on making the front of Town Hall the entrance to the Commons. If not completely physically, it will be the first thing that people see as they come down the street. And so I would like to give that some thought, and this is just my personal view. if I really think about what made Yountville what it is today, a lot of it relates to people like Sally and Don Schmidt and Poncha. And I think we have it kind of reversed. I would like to see them in front of Town Hall. But that's just my personal opinion, and maybe it goes, I do understand there's reasoning to put them in the corner over there by the chicken coops, which is a lovely little spot, but it doesn't really highlight their, just won't really highlight them. But again, that's just a personal view, and I think we deserve a larger discussion around it. And they have the saying, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. I really do appreciate the idea that somebody wanted to donate the life-size statue, and maybe there's another place in Yountville, or maybe when the Legacy Walk idea is completed in our minds, it could be incorporated. But I think right now it's not something that, because I would support, not that I wouldn't support the Legacy Walk, but I just don't support the life-size statue of George Yount in front of Town Hall for the reasons I outlined and what some of the other folks have, and other people have also mentioned to me. So that's my thinking on it.
Councilmember Reeves.
I have to say that Kay is very, very persuasive in her sort of boiling down all the points that we actually discussed in that July meeting as well. The whole idea of another white man sculpture and the idea that an 18th century person had a certain style that we don't support at this point. So I totally get all of that. And I also get how much work has gone in so far from staff producing this idea. But I think there are a lot of parts of this idea that I can support. And Vice Mayor Tripp just hit on an idea. Maybe there's a different place for this sculpture, because I think he belongs over by the cemetery, if he belongs anywhere in town. But also I think we are a little bit in front of the timing as far as finishing up our concept of the YES property and just trying to figure out what it is we want to project. And I absolutely support this idea of history and a free experience in Yountville as a kind of a community development idea. I absolutely think that's a great idea. And of course, I support Sally. She was a client of mine, and I would like to see her somewhere in town. But when we talk about this 60th anniversary, it really doesn't talk about George Yount. It really speaks to where are we in the world today, and who and what got us here, which I think we could refer back to George Yount in ways that are not a sculpture. This idea of he was the first to grow grapes, or he was really agriculturally inclined and taught how to grow things, and that he was a hospitable guy because he was the only place in town, basically, for someone to go and stay over. And he was involved in commerce, all things that relate to the current picture of Yountville, I think. If we could celebrate those three aspects of our past and our current, then I don't know that we need a sculpture to do that, but we could certainly allude to the fact that he's connected to that, as were Sally and Don Schmidt, as were the Bartizonos, as were a lot of people in town, Bud and Barbara Delinsky, sort of the picture of hospitality and can-do kind of guys. Those are the kind of concepts that I'd like to put out there on our anniversary, rather than have this sort of not not really quite comfortable with a sculpture like that has been proposed. And yeah, I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, but I also don't want to have that around our neck if it turns out that that's not appropriate. So those are my thoughts.
So, Councilmember Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the comments of Malin and Kay and council members that have spoken so up to now, and you'll never find anyone who's more focused on being sure we have good process, good discussion, and in the end, the decisions we make come from consensus and consensus building and listening to everyone, including the comments that we heard today from Whitney. So sometimes when process is hurried, it just, for me, it's unsettling. And it's not that the ideas are bad; they're not. I mean, I love the idea of us, like I said earlier, focusing on a legacy walk, a legacy trail, and but process and discussion and consensus building are important. So I also have kind of generally felt that we can celebrate our 60th incorporation at the same time and move forward with that without necessarily focusing back on one important historical character. And so I would basically say that I would agree with what I've maybe heard so far with the Vice Mayor and Councilmember Reeves, that we continue this discussion and hear from a broader group of people and invite the community to be more involved in this process. I appreciate this offer from Mr. Ward that he's made this investment and plans to make this investment, and I certainly think as a part of a longer discussion about a legacy trail that there may be a place someday in what we call Yountville Community Park right next to the cemetery. There's always many places in town that it may be appropriate. So I'm going to support what I've heard today from, at least right now, two council members, that we continue the discussion. So I can't support the resolution that's before us today.
Well, another concept that was kind of talked about really early, I mean, if that's the general direction of the council, that he probably doesn't really belong in front of Town Hall. There is space right next to the millstone. So actually moving those millstones over here, it's going to be, they're really heavy. And so, they would require, new pads and all that to put them on. So that is another concept of just, instead of move the millstones towards George, move George towards the millstones, kind of in front of the community center. And, this discussion I think is important to have and very interesting. Kind of reminds me of probably right about when I was starting on the council, the whole idea of art in town. Boy, talk about a lot of diverse opinions about what that was going to do and who was going to like it and who was going to pick it and, and who was going to pay for it. And, the group of people kind of started by baking cookies and, just gathering around and eating cookies and talking about art. And it, and then over, it was like, do we even need this? And then it kind of, diverged into, well, what about signs? We have too many signs. We don't need these signs. And so, yeah, there was and we do debate a lot of stuff. But I think always giving something a try. And well, let's see if this is going to work. And people did finally, okay, let's do it. And we'll have a group of people kind of that we pick amongst ourselves, decide, what this art might look like and how it might work. And so everybody put their toe in the water, and now we have this incredible artwork all over town. And so I'm always one to kind of be inclined to say yes to things and give it a try, because everything that we've done, instead of saying no, it's always kind of turned out just fine. So that's kind of my feeling about this. Everyone knows I love the history, and I'm not really too worried about, the money at this point. There's lots of ways to get money. I remember when we did it was very controversial at the time, too, somebody brought forth the idea of, having painting that ugly, gray concrete going under California Street, the mural. So there was a lot of discussion about that. What would that look like? We actually had, I think Samantha put together a ballot. I don't know if you were involved in that. And so everybody voted on it, and then we named it, and people actually donated the money. The town didn't pay for, I think the town put in some, but a lot of people came forward. I definitely wrote a check and said, I want to help with this. So, just saying that the town necessarily is going to pay for it. I mean, I'm open to a lot of different avenues. We've got, a lot of businesses in town that, might be willing to help fund some of these statues. So I think we just now kind of need to be creative. So I would be in support. So those are my comments. Councilmember Reeves.
I think we're back to process, and I think part of it is that the donation of a sculpture started the process in midstream rather than having a discussion about whether we wanted to have a legacy trail. And I think the idea of a legacy trail is important and I think positive. But starting with just because George Yount, the town was named after him, we've acknowledged that several places in town, and just because someone wants to donate a sculpture, that's starting in the middle of the process rather than going the organic route where we talk about what we want to see as a community and how we want to see that progress. And I think it is important to notice the change in demographics. And just if we took a demographic statement right now, there are more women in town than there are men, and I'm not sure that we shouldn't start with sculptures of some women. So I would not want to start with George Yount as the indicator of this walk. So I feel like stepping back and taking a look at the process from the beginning rather than the middle would be helpful, and we might all come up with better ideas.
Councilmember McKee Cant.
So I want to thank Kay for coming forward and so eloquently speaking your conscience. And I have a sense that you also spoke to a lot of things that we had in our guts when we were discussing this a few months ago. But as Pam indicated, we kind of did start in the middle of a process with, we've got this offer and it's got to be this thing. And I mean, at the time I was kind of out of left field, but I still mean it, that if we stepped back and looked at what we want to represent Town Hall, yes, we want to have credit to our history and the legacy and the people in town, but we also are the heart of Napa Valley. So if we were drawing people in, wouldn't we want art that people wants to come to and see themselves with? And so without belaboring it anymore, I'm ready to bring this forward so we can vote on it.
You making a motion?
if it's not too premature, and I'll.
Yep, I don't see any more lights on after you, so give it a shot.
So I say we vote on the resolution number 244310, deciding whether or not we want to approve the Yountville Legacy Trail concept and authorize the town manager to work with donors, staff, and the Arts Commission.
We do what? Say that again.
Well, I'm trying to say this without, and I might need a little attorney help. I'm trying to say it without like closing the deal for everybody.
It sounds like you're moving the staff recommendation, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think just a motion to adopt resolution 244310 with the title that's there on the agenda.
Okay.
And a second before you all debate it, of course.
And I'll go ahead and second too, so we can debate. Councilmember Reeves.
Am I too late to make a substitute motion?
You're right on time.
Yep. Okay, good. I would make a substitute motion that says that I would like to move forward on exploration of the Legacy Trail and what that might mean for the community, but not accept the sculpture of George Yount as the initial part of that discussion.
So we have a substitute motion, so we would need a second on that.
I would second that motion.
Okay. So just for the records, we can have one more substitute motion if anybody would like to make one.
Yeah, and I would just
gonna-
say as well, before voting on that substitute
Right.
motion, I'll just ask for a little bit of clarification. I think that we would revise this resolution then before you vote and make sure you all agree on what those revisions are. But
Okay.
continue.
Great. So we have a substitute motion and a motion, so we'll talk about the substitute motion after we hear from the town manager.
Yeah, it was just clarification on the substitute motion to see if exploration would include starting the call for entry process for Sally and the Poncha, because obviously that's a process too. You're not approving anything, but it's, as I understand it, like a 3 to 6 month process. So I just don't know what exploration exactly means. So if you can help me, I do know that you specified not accepting the donation, but I wasn't clear on the Sally and Poncha side.
Right. I'm sort of worried about proceeding with that if we don't have an actual base discussion about what it is to have a legacy walk and what does that mean and what our parameters are and who qualifies to be on that. I think Sally and Francis qualify, but that doesn't mean other people might not want to chime in on that. But also, I do believe that moving the millstones to the town hall is still a good idea. I don't know if that is part of this motion, but
Well, that's up to you. You're making the motion. I would tell you, I think if exploration is developing a program that is similar to the Art Walk, I will tell you that's a lot of work. And I think we're welcome. Obviously, we're at your service, but that's not like we'll come back at the next meeting. I think I would have to talk to Sam. We'd have to really. I mean, you know how detailed that is. It has a funding mechanism. It has a lot of. There's a lot there. So I do think there are things we can do concurrently if you, because you're ultimately the decision maker. So if you direct us to start the call for entry and work out a program, we can do that. Whether or not you want to say today we want to move the millstones, I do think one thing we are, as you know, working on, because the book is there and we're intending to move that to the memory wall to fit into what we've preserved at the school site. We will have an empty pad. I don't know that that's really in the staff report right now in terms of making the decision. We did discuss it in context with George and the millstones, but I do think that sort of restarts that conversation a little bit. So I would feel comfortable with the exploration of a program, similar to Art Walk, that talks about, I guess, parameters of the Legacy Trail. And then you can also direct us whether or not you want us to begin the call for entry process so we can be in a position at least, because that will take, both of those things will probably take 3 to 6 months. And so if there's anything we want to achieve for February 4th, we should probably take some more specific action than just exploring something, because I just want to be clear, and I want to also be able to direct staff, because again, it's a lot of work to develop a program, which we can do, but I'm trying to get a little clarity so we don't get, we're talking process today, so I think having a clear process is important for staff. Thank you.
Can I amend my motion to add that clarity of calling for artist input and setting parameters and designing a program?
So maybe you're revising your motion. Is she amending or revising, Gary?
Oh.
Technically.
So we'll need to come up with some amendments to the resolution because that's what's on the agenda. So what I've heard so far is, well, I'm going to ask for some clarification on the George C. Yount sculpture and what that motion involves. And then if I can get some more details on what you're proposing right now, I can come up with some language.
Well, if Pam were to revise it, I would not second that, because I think we need to be cognizant of process, and I think we can celebrate much on February 4th. I'm not thinking, because I do like the 2 figures we've talked about, but if we set out a call for sculptures and then begin financing them, we haven't really addressed other issues, which I think were raised partly by Kay, but I feel important too. The indigenous people who are here, all the people who grew the grapes, and even though some of the Mexican-American land grants had their own issues, it was an important part of our history. So I don't know that I would be ready to embark immediately to try to get sculptures in line by February 4th, because I do, and this is just me, I defer to Eric and the mayor, but it seems to me there's a lot to celebrate about Yountville in terms of the 60th without that. So I guess I wouldn't want to rush that process, especially if we're going to slow down. Then I really would want to have some people with some thoughts together on we know at least 2 people we'd like to honor, but there might be other ways to honor and other people, that reflect the agricultural heritage we have here. So anyway, that's just my thought on that.
So I want to make sure we have a substitute motion on the table, which has not been revised or amended, and you're okay with
well, I seconded it, but if it's further revised, I wouldn't. My second doesn't incorporate the further revisions, so I have to rely on your parliamentary procedure.
Okay, so here's the clarification. I think I agree with Vice Mayor Tripp that my clarification would be that we do not accept the George C. Yount sculpture, and that we postpone and create a mechanism for historical art development in Yountville as a community project.
Well, I would second that. Your revised.
Now I'm going back to staff because we wrote down the words, and so does the staff understand the words or have reason for a clarification?
So on the agenda this evening, or this afternoon, it's almost this evening, includes a resolution. So we'll need to include all this in the resolution because that's what you're voting on this afternoon. So I think there are 2 things to be removed for the sculpture. Recital D, which says the initial phase of the trail will include the George C. Yount sculpture. And then also B of the resolution itself, which says to authorize the town manager to formally accept the donation of the George C. Yount sculpture, if I'm understanding the substitute motion here. And then if I can get a little more detail on what the second piece of this is, I will come up with some language here for you guys to vote on.
I have a question, point of clarification for a resolution building here. I'm a little uncomfortable about having to vote on a resolution that says we won't accept something. I guess my question is, first, is it required for, I guess I'm curious whether we need to take an action on a resolution at all tonight, but is there a need for a resolution of not accepting this sculpture because we took that action in August, or was there? I guess that's my question. Do we need to take action on a formal resolution, or are we able to just have a conversation and give direction to staff and bypass or table this motion, this resolution?
So the current resolution does two things. It authorizes the town manager to work with staff, donors, and the Arts Commission to create the Yountville Legacy Trail, and then it authorizes the town manager to formally accept the sculpture. Those are the two things the resolution does. So we can take out the sculpture piece of this by just deleting sections of this resolution and then add additional information in on what it means to create the Yountville Legacy Trail, which sounds like what the substitute motion is about, and then have this resolution adopted at this meeting. It's, of course, up to you all whether or not to do that, but it is a resolution on the agenda, so we will need to have you vote on the resolution if you're voting on something.
And just to continue, Mayor, for clarification, so then you're talking about removing recital C, but the question is, do we need to vote? Is there a needed vote or action by the council to not accept it because of action we took in August when we were discussing this item?
I think I'm going to.
Or can we just give direction to staff about where we're at this point?
Yeah, I'm going to turn to the town manager and perhaps the clerk to remind us exactly what direction and vote was done at that meeting.
Yeah, I think whatever's done tonight will, in essence, supersede what was done then. But I do think that I was directed to accept the donation, to work with the ad hoc and the public art committee, and then to work out the details. And I think, we've kind of gotten back to here. So again, I think what happens tonight will supersede what happened then, because we haven't, at least I haven't negotiated any kind of donation agreement or worked with Mr. Orr on anything, because we were waiting for this evening to make sure we had the direction needed. But I would just advise you, because I think there's a little confusion going on with the resolution, is that the recital C is what I think you're talking about, and the town manager is talking about the portion of the resolution that actually is letter B. So when you have the recitals, those are the whereases, and then you basically make a decision where you resolve to do the following. So the and I do think recital C and recital and resolution letter B are in line with each other. Both of those are specific to accepting the donation of George Yount. I think that the thing I would have you also read is recital D, which says the initial phase of the trail will include George C. Yount sculpture as well as sculptures of Sally Schmidt and Poncha. So if the intent of the reso was to follow through on letter A, which says, this is of the actual resolution, that you authorize me, the town manager, to work with staff, future donors, and the Art Commission to create the Yountville Legacy Trail. That would, in essence, I think, follow what you're suggesting of, like, we need to create a program, we need to develop parameters, et cetera, et cetera. You could either then choose to include Sally Schmidt in the initial phase of that, it's not the complete phase of it, or you could choose to say, we're not ready to make that decision yet. We're just wanting you to basically do letter A and dismiss really all of the recitals. So that would be my advice, at least in terms of the reso for this evening. So does that make sense? And then you can shape it accordingly.
So if we were to do that, we would basically be saying we are not accepting the sculpture. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, because I just wanted to be clear on that. Okay, and so it's not going to be a situation where, right, there will be an opportunity for the committee or whatever group to decide how to proceed in terms of the legacy trail and who and how to do it. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I would just tell you, as I'm thinking through the next 3 to 6 months to help come back with something that you can sink your teeth into that answers questions. it seems like there is consensus that Sally and Poncha should be honored as part of this legacy trail. So having that direction today, we're not saying we're going to put sculptures up February 4th. We're saying we could come back February 4th with a concept that you could consider, which would give context to the trail. Because I think if it's just totally open-ended and we're asking people, who do you think should be in the trail, I think that's going to be hard for us to manage. Because, I've heard a bunch of names today. We're going to get into a big, long conversation about who's historic, who's not historic. It's not going to be tangible enough at least for me to say, okay, this is what we're talking about, and here's the cost of 2 sculptures or 1, whatever the Sally and Poncha thing. So you can also kind of process what's this going to cost, because I think, people are asking that question. I can't tell you, if it's 10 sculptures, it could be $1 million or something, but I think if you're able to give a little bit of that direction, we're not going to come back with, again, I think the challenge, of course, with the donation is because someone's donating the money, it sort of puts us in a take it or leave it position, right? Because they are dictating the art. I do feel like there's value in us starting our process with the Public Art Committee and concurrently developing a program that you can consider collectively. And that'll make it easier for us to get to a finish line. Otherwise, we can be talking about this, for a long time. So if that helps you, that would be my recommendation, or my refine, or whatever, our new recommendation. And I think we could come back by February 4th with something that hopefully the community supports, but obviously that you can vote and give us clear direction. Thank you.
Maker of the motion has the floor. The substitute motion.
So, what he said is what I'd like to do. The whole idea of creating or handing the task of parameters and ideas to a public art committee, and starting just to get a call for artists and a ballpark figure of what that costs to enable those people to understand what it will cost as we move through. Yeah. And then my computer is frozen. I don't know how to make this motion, but whatever.
If it makes sense, pardon me. Yeah, I can read to you the recitals, but I mean, I know Gary's better at this than me. But I think that I would tell you, recital C is eliminated. The portion of recital D that refers to the George Yount sculpture is eliminated. And then letter B of the actual resolution is eliminated. And I think if all of those things are done, then I think we can move forward based on what I just said.
Yes.
I agree.
So that's my motion.
And I'll second that, now that it's clarified.
I have a question then. If we're
Yeah, I do too. Let's go with Councilmember McKee Cant. She buzzed in first.
My question in moving forward with the secondary movement is, are we assuming that we do want Poncha and Sally in the Pocket Park? Is that the location that we're all in agreement on? So, I mean, if we're moving forward with calls for artists, we have to determine the location.
I don't think the motion, I'm sorry, does the motion have to recognize the location, or?
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to, but I think the concept that you have in your agenda packet does do that. I will tell you the basis for that is we do need to do some work on that park. We control it. There is a need, just so you know, to make that table ADA compliant. So there's some things that we're going to have to do regardless. And it is also across the street from the French Laundry and Poncha's home. So I think there's, to me, a really good reasons to do it there, both financial and historic. So I would advise that we do that, because if we're going to get into a conversation about, first of all, historic figures, secondly, where they belong, I would go back to my advice that we're not going to be able to bring anything back to you that I think will be executable. It will turn into.
I'm in agreement. I just heard that brought forward to say, well, shouldn't maybe they be here? So I want to make sure that we were all on one page and yeah, that location.
Okay. yeah, I would refer to the concept sketch that was an exhibit to the staff report.
Okay, so,
Mayor,
Councilmember Knight.
Thank you. Okay.
You've already had your.
So if I understand, the substitute motion is removing recital C, amending recital D, removing the comment about George C. Yount. I am unclear why we are removing recital B, which really talks about the Yountville Legacy Trails intended to begin a tradition of recognizing pioneers and meaningful figures in the history of Yountville and will complement the existing art walk by developing standards and procedures. Why would we remove B?
There are two Bs. It's the second one.
Two Bs?
Yeah, at the bottom in the actual what you are resolving. It's that B that would be removed.
The second B.
There we go.
Oh, B2. So B1 will remain. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
So, with no more discussion, because everyone's run out of rounds, and so there isn't something just so critical you have to hear it. We are going to vote on the substitute motion. So, I am very enamored with the whole idea of the Legacy Trail, whatever the final concept is. I think our history to keep, kicking it down the road is just, it's there's so many people that, reach out and they want to know, and I see a lot of enthusiasm. If I have to just go with Poncha and Sally to get it going, I will do that. I really feel like we're not doing the right thing about George, but if this is how the council wants to go, I will support it just to at least get that going. But too bad we're not going to have George. What we have of George is not that much. There's some old, things that nobody can really read anymore on stone someplace. But anyway, it is what it is. So that's kind of where I stand. So with that, we are going to vote on the substitute motion first.
Resolution 244310 is approved as amended.
Okay, so that approves, and the primary motion then fails by default. So with that, we have made a decision. Thank you, everybody, for your input. Now, let's see. We've got, do we have any staff presentation or informal reports?
Just a brief report from me as relates to the Yountville Commons. As you can tell, we're making steady progress. I will tell you, I was over in the, I call it room 11, but the room where we were having the million cups of coffee. You should visit. You can visit more than once if you haven't made an appointment, but there's now over 50 pins. You're starting to see the people that have come there, and it's pretty interesting. And the model is being developed, the three-dimensional model. That will be unveiled on Thursday at the PRAC, the Park and Rec Advisory Council meeting, which will be here Thursday. It'll be their study session at 6 p.m. So obviously the focus will be on parks and open space. But I think the model is this new tool that I saw today for the first time, and it's not quite done, but it's getting close. So whether you just walk by and you can kind of look in the window, you can see they're using 3D printers, I guess, to create all the buildings around the site, which really does give you a lot more context when you're looking at the site. So as you all know, but I'll just remind everyone that's watching at home, we have 3 study sessions starting with Park and Rec Advisory Council. Then in October we'll be with the Measure S Committee to talk about workforce housing. And then in November we'll be with the ZDRB to layer in civic uses and also parking and circulation, which are always the things that nobody wants but that you need. And I think our hope is by the end of November to have some visions that then the community can talk about a little more specifically after all the ideas have been heard. So again, in that point, we're open to different ideas for open houses or outreach. The intent, as you know, has been to come back before the council probably in February, March, and get to a place where we decide whether or not we can make decisions on how to move forward. So we're on track. I think things are going well. You're seeing the progress with the interim uses, and despite public art and sculptures, the 5 things that you told us to do are on track to get done, which will be something to celebrate on February 4th. And I think that's really been where the staff and a lot of people, everyone sitting behind me, have been working hard to make sure we can deliver on the interim uses. And meanwhile, have the robust process that we committed to in terms of listening to the community. So either listen in or come in on Thursday, PRAC. It'll be a good conversation. I know Alan's here and he'll be chairing that meeting, and we look forward to continuing the process. So thank you.
Vice Mayor Tripp has a question for you, Brad.
I just wanted to thank you again for the interim uses. People are completely enjoying the dog park as a major interim use. And in fact, somebody today told me around 6:30 in the evening it gets too many dogs. So that's a problem we hadn't really anticipated. All happy, though, no fighting. So people are really enjoying that. And all you have to do is walk by to see that. So thank you, and thank John, and thank you, Samantha. And so the interim uses, at least in that regard, are really a big plus. And also I see children playing on some of the equipment, which has been upgraded. And so you can hit 2 things at one time, the kids and the dogs. So that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember McKeecan has a question for you, too.
No question. Just a statement that I had forgotten about the pins in the map for residents that come and meet with Brandon and have coffee and conversation, and just to point out to the community that as he's meeting with families, he is designated or making a point to put a pin in their home. So we really will see a pattern of involvement and. Sorry, we have a little spider coming to us. Involvement and interest in what's going on there. So we've got a lot more homes that need to be pinned. And so here's official encouragement to please stop in and have that cup of coffee. Thank you.
And I know Whitney left, but I did say at the board meeting this morning, residents and businesses. So businesses also get a pin if they come in and visit. So, everyone. We need to get a pin on the sheriff's office, so come on in, James. Share your thoughts.
Okay, seeing.
Sorry, Mayor. I just want to add, too, that I signed up today. If the residents or business owners or anyone in town wants to go to the Town of Yountville's website, a big square that says Yountville Commons, click on it. You can go down and sign up. There are dates and times and appointments, and there's a lot of openings. I signed up for a time on October 1st today. So go there and sign up, make an appointment, and sit down and have a conversation. So.
Okay. So with that, let's move on to council external meeting reports. I have a couple of announcements. Does anybody else have a meeting report?
No, NVTA is tomorrow.
Had about quite a few Cal AFCO meetings. I won't get into that. We're getting ready for our big conference, so a whole lot going on there. And today was flood control. We're spending quite a bit of time. We're needing a lot of easements for the final flood wall project. And some people are cooperating and providing easements. It's a little complicated, and some are going out and getting their own appraisers, and so it makes things a little complicated. Some people a little more resistant, and so we are moving ahead with some eminent domain proceedings too. So a lot of work going on to get that flood wall constructed. Also on the Upper Valley, the Upper Valley Waste Management discussion. There, we are planning to have a meeting on October the 21st. We are hearing from our waste management company, Waste Connections, that they are possibly interested in closing Clover Flat landfill, and so they're going to be hopefully have made a decision with a process about where our garbage, the actual waste part of our garbage, would actually go. And so at our meeting, just to make sure everybody's aware that the only contract that Upper Valley Waste Management Agency has with the landfill, we don't permit it, we don't inspect it, we don't approve it, we don't do anything. We just have a contract that the waste that the waste company actually picks up will go there. So we'll be talking about where that would go and what effects it might have on the ratepayer. And I've also invited Steve Leder to come and talk to the council. We're setting dates either October 1 or November the 5th. So if anybody has any questions about things that you would like for us to discuss or information, hopefully he will be here and he can provide that for you. So those are my updates. Vice Mayor Tripp.
I just wanted to make a suggestion, Mayor, if the meeting on the 21st will discuss in more detail the closure or the potential closure of the landfill, would it be possible to have Mr. Leder, who is, I think, basically the staff for the agency, to come on November 1st so that I'm very interested in this topic. I wouldn't be asking him questions that he might, if he comes October 1st, I'm going to be asking him questions he probably is going to answer on October 21st. So that would just be a suggestion. If he
It would be November 5th when we have our meeting.
November 5th.
Yeah.
So that might make more a more fluid process.
Okay.
Thank you. And then I just wanted to clarify.
I'll check with his schedule. I can't promise anything.
Right. I did want to clarify your comments about the agency. It has a franchise agreement, as I understand it, and Gary's provided that. And the signatory to the franchise agreement is the agency, correct? And so the agency does have ability, because it has the contract with the Waste Connections, to have input on what Waste Connections decides. Is that correct? Because they signed the contract, and it has huge numbers of obligations on the part of Waste Connections about how the landfill will be operated, how the contract can be terminated. So much of the decision would eventually have to involve the signatory to the contract. Is that correct?
I'm going to turn it over to our town attorney.
Certainly there will be discussions, I think is that the extent of the question?
No, the extent of the question is, does the agency, having signed the franchise agreement, have any ability to impact the performance or the continuation of its partner in the franchise agreement?
I don't believe so. I need to go back and look to confirm that. There are certainly post-closure provisions in the franchise agreement. Those are mirrored from state law, and there are lots of requirements for how landfills are closed and how they're monitored, and a lot of the compliance that happens there.
If they were to close the landfill, would the franchise agreement terminate?
Yes.
And would the agency have to agree to terminate it?
I don't think we could unilaterally say no, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, thank you. And just one more question. Is there more than one franchise agreement? I understood perhaps there was one with a waste hauler as well as the landfill?
There are two franchise agreements.
Could I get a copy of the second one as well?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy. It's all available on Upper Valley's website.
You know, I've been to the Upper Valley website, and it refers me back to the county, and then I cannot find a single document. I can't find the agendas.
So if you just Google Upper Valley Waste Management Agency, the very first selection gives you to a landing page, and it has all the agreements on it. I will still forward it to you all, of course.
Okay, so it doesn't, I always end up back on the county land website. So that's not the way it should work then. I'm doing it wrong.
I don't know, but I will forward it to you.
Yeah. You can Yeah, you can actually do it either way.
Okay.
So one will take you one way and one will take you the other way. So either way.
But do you end up at the county website?
I usually start with the county website, but I also know the way that going to the Upper Valley, it works that way too.
Are the documents separate from the county website? I guess that's all I'm
It's
asking.
under the county website. You have flood control. You've got
Right,
Upper Valley Waste Management. All this stuff. You got to
Right.
go down and select the right agency. And once you select that agency, you'll see all the
Okay, so
the
it doesn't
contracts,
exist
bylaws.
independently of the county website. It's not on the agency's website. It's on the county's website. That's all I wanted to find out.
It's all the same thing, actually.
Okay, that's okay. I didn't mean to belabor. I'm sorry, Margie. I'll figure it out, and
Okay.
Gary can direct me. Thank you.
And I'm happy to send them all too, but Gary will too. All right, so with that, business is complete for a day. I'd like to get a motion to, let's see, we are going to adjourn to our meeting on October the 1st at 3 p.m. Can I get a motion and a second for that? You want-
I move adjournment.
All second? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, see you later. Wait till the light goes off. Thank you very much.